Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to make this block right here, which is called the Churn dash block. I have added an extra embroidery in the center of my block. And if you'd like an embroidery, it won't be this exact one, but I can send you a really cool one if you have an embroidery machine. Just let me know, excuse me, which machine format you need. So this is the block we're going to be making. If you contact me, this is the information that I will give you or send to you. It has the block. It's not very clear, but you don't need to see it very clearly right now, but it has the block and has all of the cutting directions that you will need in order to make a 9x9 block, a 9-inch square block. This block I've printed out from Electric Quilt. They happen to call it the Greek square, but I know it as the Churn dash block. There's another example of it. Okay, and some more cutting instructions. So let's get started with the cutting. Okay, the first thing you're going to notice is at the top, it's going to tell you that you need to cut your pieces 3 7/8 inches by 3 7/8 inches, and that you're going to need 4 patches, 4 triangles of the darker color and 4 patches of the lighter color. But the way that we're going to make these half square triangles, we need to add 7/8 of an inch to what they're saying we need to cut the pieces at. So that would be 3 7/8 plus 7/8 of an inch. Now if you remember back from grade school or junior high school, that would be 3 14/8. And then you have to reduce down that 14/8. So it's going to be 4 6/8. And then that is going to further reduce to 4 3/4. Okay, for this step I'm going to start cutting one of my fabrics, and I'm going to cut it at 4 3/4 of an inch. I've already pressed it and I've already starched it too because I like it to be a little bit stiff. So I'm going to measure this at 4 3/4. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 3/4, and I'll line it up. I'm also making sure that my line down here is straight. Now this is some fabric that I've already used, so I know that this is a very nice straight edge. So I'm going to cut up. That's 4 3/4, and I needed a square that was 4 3/4 by 4 3/4. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 3/4 again. Again, I'm on my tippy toes, making sure that everything's lined up properly. And I cut. So that's one of the blocks that I'll need. And remember, it said we needed 4 pieces all together. So I'll cut a second one of this the exact same size, because this will make 2 pieces when I sew it together with the other one. Then I'm also going to iron or press and starch this and cut out 2 pieces that are 4 3/4 inches wide of this as well. Now I have all of the blocks that I need for the first one cut out. I'm only going to show 2 here right now. But the next thing that I'm going to do in order to get ready to make the half square triangles is to place one on top of the other, right sides together, line them up very nicely. Then I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm going to use a friction pen just because I don't need to worry about this because it's going to be in the salvage if it should ever show up again. But I'm going to line up my ruler so that it goes from diagonal to diagonal and just draw a line. Okay, there's my line. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine. Whoops, I need to keep them lined up when I'm over there. But I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch from this side of the line and 1/4 of an inch over here. So I'm going to go do that at the machine and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see, but I have stitched 1/4 of an inch from the line on this side and on this side. Now what I do with the line is that is my cutting line. So I'm going to take my rotary cutter and just carefully cut along that line, and when I open these up you'll see that I have 2 half square triangles. So I'm going to go over and press them and cut off the little dog ears. Okay, I've pressed these 2 blocks, and as I mentioned, I like to trim off the little dog ears, but I do need to tell you that I like to press my seams open. And since I press my seams open, I like to stitch at a length of 1.5 or 1.6. So then I would just trim off these little dog ears. This. The next series of blocks that I would cut out is this step right here, B, and they're supposed to be 3.5 inches by 2 inches. And since I'm not sewing them into half square triangles, I will cut them exactly as shown here, 3.5 by 2, and I'll do these same colored pieces again because they're going to go here, 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 and here. So I'll need a total of 4 of the darker ones and 4 of the lighter ones. Okay, I'm going to cut 4 3.5 by 2 inch rectangles out of the lighter colored fabric and 4 3.5 inch by 2 inch rectangles out of this one. But I'm just going to do 1 each for the demonstration purposes. So I'm going to use my ruler and I'm going to measure over 2, making sure I line up the bottom line and look and see if the top is also straight. And then I go 1 2 inches over and cut. That's my scrap. So it was supposed to be 3.5 by 2. So here's the 2 inches wide. And now I need it to be 3.5 inches long. So I find the 3.5 inch mark on my ruler and just cut. Okay. Then I'll do the same with this one. So I'm going to do 2 inches wide, again lining up the bottom and making sure that the top looks good. 2 inches wide by 3.5. Now this looks a little wonky to me over here, so I'm going to trim this off so it's straight. So again, I'm making sure that my line at the bottom is straight, or that it's straight across. Here we go. So it wiggled a little bit. Okay, and now that was 2 inches by 3.5. So there's 1 2 3 and a half, lining everything up. Okay, so there's that one, 3.5 by 3.5. Then I'm just going to take those to the machine, right sides together, sew 1/4 of an inch,